Hey Veracity, welcome back to the channel. It's a girl more, and I'm back with another reaction video. Today guys, I'm going to be reacting to the alternative view, and this is Brits should give up alcohol if it offends immigrants, she says. Really? Oh my goodness. Alright guys, this is my first time checking this out and I'm super excited to get into the video. But before we get started, we have some amazing people watching us for the first time. If you are new to the channel, hello, I'm Vera. I do reaction videos. If this is something that you love, why not join Veracity? Hit the subscribe button below, turn on the post notification bell so that you can always be the first person to know whenever a new video drops. Guess what guys? Today is my birthday! Guys, I'm super excited and I'm really grateful to see another year of my life, and I really appreciate it if you guys can wish me a happy birthday in the comment. Wish me a happy birthday, just say sweet things to me, send me a prayer. I would really love it. Okay, thank you so much, Adam. Let's get started.
I'm going to show you a series of clips from a debate on asylum seekers that took place in Doha, Qatar. Douglas was in a hall full of people who were against him, including this antagonistic woman who got rather combative.
Wow.
She is a British Lebanese journalist who obviously hates Europe and Britain.
Wow.
She does everything she can throughout the debate to paint him as a bigot, but he destroys all her arguments. Here's the first clip.
Dehumanizing refugees, thank you very much. And with this, let me go to you, Douglas Murray. Because much of your argument, Douglas, seems to be about the us versus them, the fact that, we have our own values, our own Britishness, our own virtues, and they will come to our shores with their values, their traditions. You seem to almost suggest that they come to your countries with a lesser breed of values.
No, I don't think I said that at any point, and that's another time you've tried to put something in my mouth.
So when you talk about the difference in values, what do you suggest?
Look,
He says she's trying to put words into his mouth. Gosh, these people.
first of all, I didn't say that. I said that there are challenges because we do know that there are challenges, and let's just be frank about this. I mean, for instance, I've been in the Gulf for the last week or so. I see more burqas in my home city of London than I have seen in the Gulf in recent days, certainly here in Doha. Now, I can't say I'm delighted by the sight of more and more burqas in London. Do I feel any hatred of the people who wear them? Of course not. Of course not. But I can't say I'm elated by it. And definitely there are times I think, what percentage of burqas in this area becomes not that pleasant for everyone else.
But again, is it all down to burqas? Because again, you're not asking people with other traditions whether they care about the sight of people drinking alcohol or showing up in bikinis. Again, it's a very
we could in Britain
Western-centric viewpoint.
I'm not. I have to say, you're going to bark up the wrong tree if you think you're going to persuade a Brit that we should stop drinking alcohol because of people arriving in our country. I mean, that's not going to happen. These things are all a bit of give and take.
That you bring your own traditions that don't quite fit with theirs.
Well,
they don't.
Yeah, there are, as I said, and before we got all confrontational, which you did from the get-go, I said what the problem is here is that these things are all rubbing against each other. And in that situation, you have to work out what things you're willing to give up, which things you're willing to compromise on, and which ones you're not. You're not going to persuade the Brits to massively change their culture. But
Unbelievable. She's saying maybe it's the British people who should change their culture in their own country to fit in with the values of all the people moving there.
That's crazy.
People they didn't even want in the first place, whose customs may be very different to their own. This is a...
Okay, now that's hilarious. Like, the British should change their culture for immigrants. Like, doesn't even make sense at all. Like, what? Oh, goodness. It's really absurd.
About as anti-British an argument as you can make. Douglas was being very polite by saying, you won't get the Brits to stop drinking in their own country so as not to offend Muslims moving there. He could have said, stop telling people how to live in their own country. Their country, their rules, just like it is in Qatar. I can only laugh at her saying that. Is it any wonder there is fierce pushback against asylum seekers coming here when there's people coming out with crazy stuff like that? The same awful woman goes after him again in this clip. She keeps putting words in his mouth and interrupting him.
Douglas Murray, thank you very much. A few provocative thoughts, no doubt, that you mentioned there. A few jumped at me, such as when you said the developing world cannot move to the developed world. You seem to conveniently forget that the developed world moved to the developing world without asking permission.
No, I don't. I don't.
It seems to me as well that this is a particularly Western-centric viewpoint, and a misleading one at that, because you know as well as I do, and the figures show it, 85% of the world's refugees, in fact, settle in neighboring countries in the Middle East,
Sure.
in Africa, in Asia. They do not rush over to Europe.
Sure. You'd make a big mistake if you think I hadn't heard of colonialism.
You don't seem to address it in
and
any
I'd
way.
also suggest, by the way, that I don't know how long we're going to go on about colonialism for. I'm happy to do it as long as you like, but let
don't
me
we
just.
have to be factful, though?
Well,
Don't we have to be?
But also, don't think,
careful about
don't
facts,
think, if I
about
may say
history?
so, that colonialism was just a Western thing. What was one of the largest and most significant empires in history but the Ottoman Empire? Do we
talking
say
about-
that Turkey has to do something like the West to deal with
That's not the
Islam?
issue.
You brought up colonialism.
You are talking about the Western view that they should stay where they belong.
I'm saying that it seems to me to be much wiser that if you have a very large humanitarian crisis in, for instance, Syria, you try to make sure that people remain in the area. This isn't say all of them,
But they
but
do.
it is more likely. I absolutely agree they,
They
do.
do.
I've
I mean,
seen
look
it
at
firsthand.
Turkey,
What I'm suggesting.
3.5 million refugees. Look at Lebanon and Jordan per capita.
What
the
I'm
countries that have
suggesting
the
to you
most. In
is-
fact, in Lebanon, you've got 1 in every 4 person living in that country is
Absolutely.
a Syrian refugee.
Absolutely.
So to
What-
suggest they're not doing very much is just being misleading, being dishonest.
Believe me, I'm not being misleading. And I said from the outset that I agree with the point that most refugees remain in the area. And I said that I think that that's a good idea. I'm suggesting to you that I think it's better that people, for instance, fleeing Syria, end up in the countries around Syria in order to be able to return to their country than putting them in
But they
Norway.
will return. You are suggesting that they don't want to return. Who, in their right
I'm not
mind, if
suggesting
they
they
had
don't
the
want to
option,
return. When did I
and
say
we will
that?
hear from a refugee, if they had the option to return, of course they'd want to return.
I didn't say they wouldn't.
They leave everything behind. But you seem to also be oblivious to another important fact that I just want to throw at you before we go to a video clip that I want to show you. It's what about the moral responsibility, though, of Western countries that have contributed to the destabilization of the region, the meddling, the military interventions, not to mention the arms sales that continue as we speak? What about
Do you want me
that
to answer that?
responsibility?
Okay, I'll answer that one frankly. Nobody denies, for instance, the disaster of Iraq. But who are the people who intervened most in
It isn't
Syria?
just Iraq.
Hang on. Let me answer it. Who intervened most in Syria? It wasn't America. It wasn't Britain. It's Iran, Russia. It's, among others, countries, including the one we're in and others
You're
around
deflecting.
the Gulf
before,
here.
Before we got to
Let's
Syria,
face
we
it,
had
that
Iraq, we had Libya, we had many
countries
many
in this
instances.
neck of the woods were much more involved in the Syrian civil war than my country was.
Well, you're also
so do
pouring
you want to
money
take
at
some
it, aren't you?
responsibility for that? Do
I
you
think-
want to
I
take
think-
more
I think
refugees
Blame
here
can-
in Qatar?
certainly
Do you
can
want to
go
take
around.
more in the Gulf?
She says any refugee in their right mind would want to go back to their home country. Well, I guess they must all be out of their minds then. Pretty sure all those who'll risk life and limb crossing the sea, then go through numerous safe countries just to cross another deadly sea to get to Britain, do not intend on going back anytime
Exactly.
soon. This final clip is absolutely ridiculous in all honesty, and it's brilliant to watch. And there's no comeback from her.
I want to get to the other point that you make, and it's an important one, Douglas Murray. You suggest that we need to actually balance between two very important virtues, two important concepts of mercy toward the refugee and justice toward your own citizens. Let's take a quick look at this instance involving refugees.
Do you send anyone for us? We are the Syrians, about 300.
Sir, I give you the number of Malta authority because you are near Malta.
Hello?
Yes.
About 100 children and 100 women and maybe 100
Wow.
men. Please hurry. Water is coming into it. The boat is going down. We are dying. 300
Yes, you
persons.
have called Malta. You have called Malta.
Don't throw us.
Wow.
Get away.
Call Malta. Call Malta.
I have no enough account on the mobile. It will cut. Please. You have
Yes.
my number now. You call me, you please.
A very chilling video, though I don't suggest that you respond on behalf of the Coast Guard, the Italian Coast Guard. But again, it's that same issue of shifting the problem to others. And just for a little bit of context, in fact, this boat, which capsized 5 hours after this call, killing quite a few
Wow.
people on board, we heard that there were about 100 women, 100 children on board. That was twice as close to an Italian island as it
What
was
are they looking for?
to Malta. But again, this idea that we have to safeguard our values. where does mercy fit in that? Not just mercy, but the obligation, the legal obligations of states towards refugees.
I'd suggest that we all make sure we don't shift responsibility. There is a responsibility to everyone. That would include the state we're standing in now, wouldn't it? It would include all the states in this region. It would include the brother states. It would include the Ummah. It would include everybody. It wouldn't just be the Italians. Now, the Italians, by the way, and let me just finish this point.
That's a valid issue, but let me respond to it.
Let me finish the point.
States of the region, it's a valid issue. But unlike the European countries, allow me to just make this point, unlike the European countries,
I'll respond to 2 points.
They are not parties to the 1951 Refugee Convention. So the legal obligations are, well, it's just a fact.
She's not letting me talk.
But this means that countries that are signatories to the Refugee Convention get more blame and more assumption that they are going to have to hold more of the burden than countries that didn't. And I'm suggesting to you that nobody should be able to absolve themselves from blame. But if you go to Italy now, and I don't know when you were last there, but it is not the case that this is going well in Italy, either for the migrants who are arriving or for the Italian population.
Isn't it because the resources are not being poured into this? Let's face it, the policies are not there, the resources aren't there.
I see these people when they arrive, I follow their stories. It is not the case just that they don't, the local populations in Italy I've been to Lampedusa, I've seen the boats coming in. The local populations are extremely generous. They are extremely kind to the people. Most of the populations in Europe, let's just not have this idea that Europeans are somehow incredibly cold-hearted. Countries in Europe have taken in a lot of people, and they are trying to deal with a very big problem very swiftly.
Just putting the numbers in context, let me just mention this very briefly. 3 million people sought asylum in Europe between 2015 and 2016. That's a fraction of the population of Europe, which is 508 million.
And Germany and Sweden took in 3% of the population in 1 year alone. So we're not talking about negligible numbers, and you shouldn't pretend that we are.
Not across the board, certainly. Douglas Murray, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a tragic call, but I love how they use that backdrop. I wasn't there, but I know for a fact the seas in the Mediterranean that boat was on at the time of that tragic call were not like those on the screen. They thought they just used footage of a storm on what looks like the Southern Ocean or the North Sea for added effect. It would be literally impossible for any overcrowded dinghy of asylum seekers to be on seas like that. That swell would obliterate them in a microsecond before anyone's calling anyone. Very disingenuous of them to use that backdrop. The whole place was hostile towards Douglas Murray, and they were still no match for him. Everyone else there believes the third world has a God-given right to come to Europe and Western countries and claim the land for themselves. In fact, the Western countries should just hand the land over, is what they are essentially saying. They see it as payback for colonialism. Mark Lamont Hill, whose clips I haven't shown, was basically arguing that we need to reimagine the world and borders. In other words, Europe and the West should abolish their nations and entire identity, get rid of their borders and culture and thousands of years of history, and hand the land over to the world as a blank slate. Because rest assured, the asylum seekers flooding in won't be giving up the national identity and culture of their homelands. But he's a supporter of critical race theory, so it's exactly the argument I'd expect him to make. I also find it ironic that that debate came out of Qatar. It was brilliant how Murray pointed all that out while they were busily espousing their anti-European rhetoric. These people and their ideology are what we are up against and what we must push back against if we want our nations to have a future. And make no mistake about it, there are plenty of progressive liberal types in Britain who are actively trying to make reality the exact same worldview as Murray's opponents in that debate.
Wow. This is absolutely insane. How would you come to another man's land and come and dictate to them? Muslims. I absolutely have nothing against the Muslims, but this is just crazy. How would you come to another man's land and you're dictating to them that this is how you should run? Like, come on. First of all, you guys are not even wanted. You are unwanted. And okay, you came, they still accepted you. And now you're saying, oh, don't drink. It's again. Come on, where you are coming from? Why don't you go back to your country? Like, what's up with all these immigrants? They are doing too much. They are doing too much. It's just like someone comes to your house, you are hosting, you are the host. someone comes to your house and start telling you, oh, I don't want that picture frame there, bring it down. Guy, is this your house or my house? Especially when the person is even an unwanted guest. And the fact that she keeps interrupting, that is really, really rude and disrespectful. Like, she didn't even allow Douglas Murray to finish any of his statements. She's always like interrupting him, cutting him short, and all of that. And this is just crazy, because she doesn't want to listen. She just wants to keep talking and talking and talking. All she wanted was an argument. She has no intention of him even answering her questions. To the point that she was even trying to put words into his mouth so that she could use that to pin him down. She's a terrible interviewer. I mean, it's also disrespectful to ask a question and not even wait to listen to the answer. You ask a question and next minute you're like interrupting. Come on. I believe that if their country and their rules were so perfect, why did they leave their country? Like, listen to that phone call, that phone conversation. They have about 300 people. Why take all that risks to another country? Why not just stay in your country? Is something wrong with their country? What is going on with their country? And as usual, Douglas Murray was so brilliant, and he hits the nail on the head. What do you guys think about this video? Drop your comment down below. I totally enjoyed this. If you enjoyed this video as much as I did, give it a huge thumbs up and please share this video. And if you're new to the channel, join Virati T. Hit the subscribe button below, turn on the post notification bell so that you can always be the first person to know whenever a new video drops. And that's, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.